The controversial heads of agreement between Disney Cruises and the government making its way to the House of Assembly this morning in what the Prime Minister touted as record speed. Here's BJ McDermott with the details on the multi-million-dollar deal.
A read-through of DCL Island Development's agreement with the government points to a long-term environmental goal of reducing net emissions by 50% and diverting 60% of waste from landfills and incineration, both by next year. There is also a commitment to develop water conservation plans for new sites. Its Conservation Fund's mission is to provide financial support for programs that protect wildlife and wild places, develop community conservation and education programs, and connect kids with nature. And based on the agreement, Disney's intent is to approach the Lighthouse Point project with the same level of environmental stewardship and sensitivity. Tabling the heads of agreement in the House of Assembly Wednesday, Prime Minister Dr. Hewitt Minnis again pointed out that the project's core elements include low-density development and sustainable design, public access, and the restoration of various historical and cultural sites. Disney has also committed itself to conveying approximately 190 acres of land purchased from the private seller to the government for conservation and a national park.
A full environmental impact assessment will be done. No construction or work can be done until this is completed to the satisfaction of the government.
Money-wise, the development has a projected development of between $250 and $400 million. It's expected to provide an $805.1 million increase to the Bahamas' GDP, with a $357.5 million increase in revenue.
Disney has completed acquisition of the property from the private seller. The property they acquired was not Crown land, it was private property. Under the heads of agreement, Disney will ensure a minimum of 120 Bahamians will be employed directly during the construction of the project. Disney also has committed to aim for an overall ratio of 80% Bahamian workers to 20% non-Bahamian workers during the life of the construction phase of the project.
However, the agreement does not specify the ratio of workers Disney would be allowed to hire after this particular phase. Reporting for JCN News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Well, the government's decision to sign the heads of agreement in private came with its fair share of backlash, but as the Prime Minister indicated in a release, the idea was to first share the news with those most impacted by its outcome.
South Lutra, an area that was suffering for a very, very long time, we thought it was appropriate that we show complete respect for the community, and they should have been the first to hear the changes that were coming. And I think, Mr. Speaker, moving forward, investment that affect certain islands within the Bahamas, out of respect, they should know what is happening rather than. So I do not apologize to anyone for respecting the population of South Lutra in such a manner.
Now, Disney has invited local officials to visit Hawaii to observe how its Aulani Resort and Spa integrates the culture of Hawaii into the resort. Disney began cruising to the Bahamas in 1998. With the development, it intends to increase the number of its ships' calls at the Port of Nassau and or the Port of Freeport by 30 to 40% over the number of calls it made in 2018. Dr. Minnis also taking a moment this morning to express condolences to the victims, their loved ones, and the people of New Zealand, where 50 people were killed and dozens more wounded in Friday's gun attacks on 2 mosques in Christchurch. According to the BBC, the first funerals took place today.
The Bahamas stands in solidarity with the international community in rejecting, in the strongest possible terms, all hate-filled supremacist ideologies which often metastasize into violence. These include racial, ethnic, religious, and other forms of supremacy based on false notions of the superiority of some based on their circumstance of birth or their human identity. As a country, Mr. Speaker, We uphold the inherent dignity of all citizens of the global commons made in the image and likeness of our Creator. The international community must be ever vigilant in rejecting the violence and hatred directed against our fellow human beings because of race, ethnicity, gender, religious affiliation, economic circumstance, sexual orientation, or disability.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs sent a diplomatic note following the tragedy. Further, the Prime Minister last week sent a letter of solidarity to New Zealand's Prime Minister, Jacinta Ardern. The two met at the Commonwealth Heads of Agreement meeting in London last year. Government officials expressing serious concern over a situation in Grand Bahama where the Grand Bahama Power Company disconnected the power supply of several businesses, reportedly the focus of an alleged electricity theft on that island. Consequently, Grand Bahama's 3 KFCs, 2 Burger Kings, and Pollo Tropical have been forced to use emergency generators to keep business going. What's worse is that should this continue, the businesses may be left with little to no choice but to close shop. Another serious blow to Grand Bahama's economy. A release from the state minister for that island, Kwesi Thompson, notes that this is a very early stage of what may become a larger situation. However, he says that the government's encouraging all parties, particularly those businesses impacted by the power company, to seek a fair resolution. The Grand Bahama Power Company is also encouraged to continue talks with the impacted businesses and the wider community, rather. In the meantime, the government has promised to do what it can to assist, with the hope that the resolution is in sight. You're watching JCN News. Stay with us.
This segment of the news was brought to you by Alive.